Well, first I want to thank the Jin for inviting me to join you guys today. And I just want to point out that I have several slides here, and I don't intend to, I really only want to spend about 5 minutes and then leave the rest of the time for questions and answers. So there's much more content on these slides than I can get through in detail, but I thought it would be best to just put it all on the slides. And since this is recorded, anybody who wants to can go back and pause and read over some of the details on the slides at their leisure. I just kind of wanted to have the information sort of down on the PowerPoints for you all. So it was actually last Friday, the call went out for clinical and translational pilot grants. So these are going to be coming due in mid-March 2021. So that's about 3 months from now. So we're hoping that gives folks plenty of time to put together some nice proposals. So just to refresh people's memory, or if you're not that familiar with the CTR, the mission of the Delaware CTR ACCEL program is to accelerate clinical and translational research that either immediately or down the road is going to address health outcomes for Delawareans. So we're looking for pilot projects that are going to address clinical and translational research. And the CTR pilot program supports what we're calling sort of regular pilots, as well as community engagement pilots. And I'm going to talk about sort of the distinction between those in a few more slides here. But as far as eligibility is concerned, really there's broad eligibility for submitting one of these pilots. So you just need to be a PI. The PI needs to be from an ACCEL partner institution. So those institutions are listed down here if you're not familiar with them. So University of Delaware, Del State, ChristianaCare, Nemours, and MUSC, the Medical University of South Carolina. And the PI needs to have a faculty appointment at the time of the award. So, for example, postdocs would not be eligible unless they will roll into a faculty position at the time of the award, which would be July. And the pilot needs to address translational research. So I just kind of want to stress for folks that translational research, we really do mean across the full translational spectrum. So all the way from basic mechanistic work, animal studies, human studies, clinical trials, to real, patient-centered research, all the way to community-engaged research projects. So anywhere along that spectrum, as long as it's intended to be translated into clinical work, is eligible. There are some sort of caveats for that that you should check on. Mainly, you can't be funded both from the CTR and also have funding from another one of the IDEA mechanisms at the same time, like INBRI or COBRI. So the pilots are, I hope, what people would judge as a fairly good chunk of money, definitely worth submitting, right? So for the regular pilots, it's a 1 year budget for $80,000, and for the community engagement projects, it's really the same amount of money but spread over 2 years, so up to $40,000 for 2 years of funding. And usually the money's used to support graduate students, postdocs, things like that, but also research supplies and travel, etc. So the application process is intended to be not overly burdensome, but basically we follow a really similar pattern to the R-type awards from the NIH. So you're submitting an abstract, a biosketch, a budget, the research plan, which I'll get into in the next slide. If you've had prior IDEA funding, again from something like CTR, INBRI, COBRI, you'll have to write a page about sort of the outcomes from that. Were you successful in producing manuscripts and grant submissions and things like that? Of course, the human subjects or vertebrate animals pages, a letter of support. And I want to point out, for people who meet the definition of an NIH new investigator, you also need to find a mentor if you don't have one, and between yourself and your mentor, create an individualized development plan, that's IDP, and with the mentor, a mentoring plan for the period of the award, and hopefully beyond. Everybody is asked to answer some questions about how their work relates to community engagement. And then for people who are specifically submitting a community engaged pilot program or a pilot project, you need to complete a little bit more detailed community engagement plan. The research strategy is really similar if you've submitted for projects through NIH. So you have a specific aims page, significance, innovation approach, but altogether it's much reduced in size. So it's really just a 4-page application in terms of the science component. Let me just move on. So these are reviewed, primarily based on scientific merit. So there will be a study section kind of along the format like you would see with NIH, where the pilots are all reviewed based on significance, the investigators, innovation, the approach, and the environment. That's sort of standard NIH language. And then an overall impact score is given on the basis of what the reviewer's assessment is of whether they think the work will exert a sustained and powerful influence in the particular research field, and whether the proposal has a strong likelihood of developing into a successful NIH proposal. And then, of course, at the sort of administrative level, there's also reviews to assess, sort of how well the work and the PI fits within that core mission of ACCEL for clinical and translational research, and for community engagement projects, the community engagement plan. I just want to point out that, at least half the funded projects must be clinical. So although more basic research is certainly welcome, there's definitely, we definitely welcome and give preference to clinical projects. So here's some key deadlines. The full proposal is due, like I said, in mid-March, but this is new this year. So mid-January, January 15th, a letter of intent is due. And I want to just say a word about that. So I don't want people to be turned off from applying because there's this letter of intent, which I don't want that to seem like a new hurdle for people to have to jump over. So let me just explain. The letter of intent is not, so everyone who submits a letter of intent will be, welcome to apply for the full proposal in March. So we're not using the letters of intent to select who we invite to apply for the full proposal. They're not reviewed for scientific merit. The purpose of the letter of intent is just to identify appropriate reviewers for when the full proposal comes in. And it's really very brief. It's just a web form where you would indicate sort of a draft title, a brief abstract, some keywords, and you identify the PI and sort of other key personnel like co-investigators or collaborators. So it's pretty short and sweet. It's really just kind of for our administrative purposes to get a head start on finding appropriate reviewers for your application. I think those are sort of the key things I had to say. I wanted to give, so this is the website where you could submit your letter of intent, and this is the Delaware CTR website in general. And I've listed here again just for so this will be recorded and people can go back and look at this if you like. This is me and my email address, but here are some other sort of key people who are involved in the pilot projects program. So first, the PDR, the Professional Development Corps, is led by Rob. So they can help, particularly if you fall in that category of an NIH new investigator. You can reach out to them for assistance with the grant writing and mentorship and career development. They will help you with the IDP and the mentoring plan. From a statistics perspective, we have the BIRD Corps, Biostatistics biostatistics, epidemiology, and research design core that can help with your design and analysis components. And then for community engagement related projects, we have the community engagement and outreach core. So they can help you make links with community partners. They can help you get a better idea of how your project relates to community engagement. And I believe that's my last slide. Yep. So I'll just leave that up in case people want to jot things down, and I'm happy to take questions at this point.